I look into the world in which the sun is shining, in which the stars are sparkling, where stones in stillness lie, where living plants are growing, where animals live in feeling, where man, within his soul, gives dwelling to the spirit. I look into the soul that lives within my being. The world creator weaves in sunlight and in soul light. To thee, creator spirit, I turn my heart to ask that blessings and pure strength for learning, work, and play may ever grow within me. This is my version of morning verse. Morning verse is used in Waldorf schools, and the original was written by Rudolf Steiner. Welcome to the I Am series. The goal of this series is to explore all that I am. The beginning of the series, we're going to focus on the relationship with self. This relationship with self will include self-discovery, self-acceptance, and getting peace with self, shining our light, and being an example of healthy self-love. We'll explore what we are taught about self, debunking myths like ego is bad, which I'll touch on today, to be small and you're not special. Newsflash, we're all special. So we're going to be doing some reprogramming via thought-filled topics and dialogue. It's an invitation to reassess self in an honest way, in a loving, caring, nurturing way versus fear-filled, fueled. The dynamic of each session is going to be different, but there is going to be a main structure to it. We'll be meeting on Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. Pacific. We will also have special showings, say guests can't show up on Sunday, or we want to really fit somebody in, where there may be additional sessions too. I'll open the doors about 5-10 minutes before a session, and we'll get to say hi to each other and do a bit of a welcoming. And then I will ask that everyone but myself and my co-host or my guest to please mute themselves during the presentation. We will be having sessions where it's open mic and we all get to share freely and openly, but I would like to do that after we get to know each other a bit better and everybody has a feel more about what this is about. The length of the presentation times will vary. Today will be really quick, and other days may be up to 50 minutes, maybe even longer just for the presentation itself. And then we'll have our talk time over after. So after the presentation, I will stop the recording, and this is where I invite you to stick around and join in on dialogue, discuss thoughts, things that were brought up for you, share insights, bring up things that you may want to look into, maybe even volunteer to be a guest. And sessions will also include homework assignments if you so choose to do. These homework assignments come with the additional encouragement to share the next meeting what the homework assignment was like for you. This is not, you don't have to, but I would absolutely love the feedback from you, please. Okay. Oh, and I was thinking we may even open up the beginning of the session to do a homework review. And maybe I'll open up the doors 20 minutes early instead of 5-10. We'll see how that goes, how it goes. I don't plan on doing most of the talking. This session and possibly next session, it will be all me. We'll have guest speakers, hosts, co-hosts, meditation sessions, journey sessions, just sessions about self-care, tips on healing self, physically, mentally, spiritually, and suggestions. And with this said, I feel this is the perfect time to mention I am not a licensed medical professional. Nothing said or presented in these sessions is to replace advice and treatment from a medical professional. These sessions are meant to complement, not replace. And so please remember that. All right. So now that you know who I am not, who am I? Me. I'm me. I am Lisa. I will be your host and facilitator through these I Am sessions. More specifically, and I know that these are just highlights I choose to share about myself. I am a mom of 4. I have 3 boys and 1 girl. I'm a wife to my husband. I am also a food lady, pet provider, and cleaner of litter on my cats. Yeah. I am a retired early childhood educator, and working with children and families was one of my passions. It still really is. I'm also a Jane of many and master of none, although I have certificates that say otherwise. I am a Reiki master, crystal Reiki master and certified teacher. I am also an energy, sound, and color healer, trained and certified. I incorporate it into the things that I do, the trainings that I get. And I'm also trained and practice the Atana healing method, Akashic exploration, and do shamanic journey work. I'm actually going to a drumming circle after this session today. I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, I also own Dragons and Art, where I provide Akashic and shamanic journey services. I have Dragon Zen art circles, where we get together to meditate, get into a zone and create. Not going to be Van Gogh or anything, just create. I also sell my creations. I am a fine artist. I do woodworking, sculpting, woodcrafting, wildcrafting. I said woodcrafting twice. It's my first time. Might be a little bit nervous. Wildcrafting, which is going out to the forest and gathering herbs and things that are there and then using it. And teas. I also facilitate with my co-facilitator, Leslie, a group called Lightworkers Union on Facebook. And I have been getting a lot more involved lately with inspiring others via lives and circles. And that's where I have been inspired to do this I Am series. So please know self-acceptance has been a journey and not an easy one. I've had a lot of therapy, counseling, been a participant in many, many group circles experiences. I'm not sharing details, but please know I'm not coming from a place that's all foo-foo. I dragged myself out of the muck, and yeah, I'm still washing a bunch of it off. I am experienced in many self-help modalities, including dialectic behavior therapy techniques. I'm also an info geek and will obsessively research topics that interest me, and I am the self is one of those topics. So without further ado about who I am, let's get into some of my thoughts about who we are. You are. I am. What this self is about. 2, I invite you to take the gold. You may get ahas, you may go, take the gold. So I am. Ego equals self. The famous psychiatrist Sigmund Freud had a theory where there's 3 parts to the self. There is the id, and this is the primordial reactive part of the self. The instinctually based thoughts and actions like sex, aggressive drives, survival instincts, bodily needs like eating, impulses, self-preservation. He also has the superego, and he tries to say is like the superconsciousness, the guidance, I guess it could be, but it seems more like a shame mediator to me. And then there's ego, where id and superego have to work through. It's like the mediator of the both. 2, ego isn't the word that Freud used. Freud used the German word for self, and it was the translator who chose the word ego, which is the Latin word for self. So please note that there's even little changes like that. And 2, it was reported that Freud had a cocaine habit, and also an unhealthy obsession with people's possible sexual attractions to their mothers and shame. A lot of psychologists criticized Freud because although he's got a lot of great ideas, he tangented a lot and didn't follow through completing a lot of these ideas. Maybe that's why his theories were so discuss-worthy, because they weren't completed and other people could theorize on the theories. Although it's noted about Freud's tangenting and not being clear about these theories, somehow this personal structure became adopted and accepted through psychology. I understand Freud separating personalities into these 3 categories. It does explain a lot about human behaviors while ignoring others. The more research I did about what is currently said about ego in many Western ideas, the more upset I got, the more confused I got. As you could tell, I was even having a real hard time saying that. I found different I am self-concepts through different cultures. And here I'd like to note that from my understanding in the African cultures, their attitudes are filled with joy and love of self and a love of life. That the concept of suicide or self-harm is like so foreign because they love themselves. So anyway, it seems like these different thoughts and concepts from these different cultures got blended together in this big mishmash confusion of self, of ego. And then Western thought people taking all these negative aspects and blending that together and labeling it as ego, and ego is the enemy. Like, I may be exaggerating, but in some instances, only slightly. I'm getting excited. Ego quotes from Google. There's nothing wrong with having an ego. There's nothing wrong with feeling important, but the ego needs to be regulated. The problems arise when it affects your decision-making, your mood, or it turns you into a victim, an underdog, or it makes you feel superior to others in order to justify your behavior. When you get upset or sad or angry, this is not you. It's just your ego, just your mind. It is not you with the problem. but with your ego. Your ego is just a part of you. And that's excerpts I took from an article called How Your Ego is Affecting Your Mental Health at www.ihasco.co.uk. Also here from medium.com and their article, Why Ego is the Enemy and What We Can Do About It. Ego makes you overestimate your own abilities and worth and underestimate the effort and skill required to achieve your goals. All of this means that you lose touch with reality and you miss opportunities to improve, to connect with others, and to achieve your goals. I could go on and on with examples of the demonization of the ego, but I won't. There is just too many to address. But I'd like to touch on these that I quoted, which I have to admit are relatively mild in the ego fear-mongering spectrum. There is nothing wrong with having an ego. There is nothing wrong with feeling important, but ego needs to be regulated. This, to me, is backhanded. It is double-edged. There is nothing wrong with ego, but it needs to be regulated. This says ego needs to be kept in check to make sure it stays in its lane. This doesn't sound like something that is inherently neutral. Does it? This sounds more like something that if you don't watch it, it's going to get you in trouble, which isn't a good thing. When you get upset or sad or angry, this is not you. It's just your ego, just your mind. Just your mind? I find this dismissive. Feeling upset is a legitimate message that something is off, that something is wrong. One's mind is most definitely part of the self that needs to be acknowledged, accepted, and nurtured. Where would we be without our minds? I read these messages that get given to people and it really upsets me. And you probably see that too. Check your ego means mind your place. Egotistical means arrogant, negatively full of self, selfish. Your ego made you do it. Insert negative thing. Means your bad part of self did wrong. It was your ego. It was yourself that did it. It wasn't anybody else, was it? Now, was it a well-adjusted, loving aspect of yourself? Or one based in fear? Get rid of your ego seems to be the declaration of many. Well, if I need to rid myself of something, that means that it's bad, right? So if I have ego, which everyone does, I am bad. If every other human has ego, that means that they're inherently bad. So everyone has ego, and ego is bad, so no one can be trusted. Demonizing self instead of the trauma caused to self. I challenge by this theory of Freud's that it is the id that is triggered by trauma, and then the primordial instincts of id completely override ego and superego. Ego isn't the issue. Id needs calming, soothing, quieting. Now, I hope to nurture that the ego, The sense of self is not good, it's not bad, but is. There are good, or there, sorry, apologies, there are unbalanced and unhealthy ones. There are healed and well ones. There are aspects in all of us that have both. Ego is not good or bad. Ego is not something that we need to rid ourselves of. Ego, sense of self, this is our human gift, not our burden. A part of self that is. A part of self that is healthiest when accepted and nurtured with love versus condemned with fear and shame. The way I see it, the person that feels badly about themselves will not rise up, will not shine, will be less healthy mentally, physically, spiritually. This is beneficial for the medical industry from the physical and mental sickness this creates. Online stores do well with binge shoppers to fill a void. Alcohol and other numbing drug sales, well, they do well. But us, the individual, a person who accepts self, who celebrates themselves and nurtures their wounds with love, compassion, empathy, is more healthy mentally, spiritually, physically. They create greater community. A person who accepts and loves themselves is more likely to help others. A person who accepts and loves self will have healthy boundaries, stand up for self while respecting the self and boundaries of others. They take care of their bodies better, they sleep better, happier, healthier hormone reactions happening throughout the body, creating a happier, healthier, well-being body. They have those stronger, happy synapse paths because it gets used so much, making these brain paths more accessible and more often utilized, creating a happier person. If we truly accept ourselves, we do not seek validation outside of us. Our goal will not to be to change ourselves, but to heal our relationship with self, which brings about change. You can see the difference. Imagine, if you will, a world where we love and accept ourselves, truly, lovingly, without arrogance, but with the quiet comfort of knowing who we are and being at peace with it. No Way, The 100 Is There by Lori Malaguzzi. The child is made of 100. The child has 100 languages, 100 hands, 100 thoughts, 100 ways of thinking, of playing, of speaking. 100, always 100 ways of listening, of marveling, of loving. 100 joys for singing and understanding. 100 worlds to discover. 100 worlds to invent. 100 worlds to dream. The child has 100 languages and 100 more. But they steal 99. The school and the culture separate the head from the body. They tell the child to think without hands, to do without head, to listen and to not speak, to understand without joy, to love and to marvel only at Easter and Christmas, They tell the child to discover the world that is already there. And of the 100, they steal 99. They tell the child that work and play, reality and fantasy, science and imagination, sky and earth, reason and dream are things that do not belong together. And thus they tell the child that the 100 is not there. The child says, no way, the 100 is there. So with that, our next session is going to be about wonder. Getting back to 99. And your homework assignment is to hug yourself. If you can only manage 1 second at first, so be it. But I challenge you to increase the amount of time that you give yourself a hug. And until later, until next week, be blessed.